This episode is going to be a masterclass in e-commerce. I have Neil here to take us over the entire path from starting your brand, launching, scaling, marketing, creating a brand, and hopefully selling your company if that's what you want to. What is the biggest opportunity or the biggest space for e-commerce, and where do you see like a gap in the market where people could go in and get started?
There's a lot of opportunity, I think, today that not everybody sees because they feel there's volatility in the market. But as there's volatility, there's always money to be made. It just may be shifting around, which means sometimes it feels closer to you and sometimes it feels farther away. And if you're listening to everything that's going on in the world, you might think physical products and e-commerce are not an opportunity, but in fact they are. Let me explain what I mean by that. And as we go through this, I may use some statistics or my real world examples of my business. So let me put a little disclaimer up that says if I tell you anything about a product or brand that we're doing or any numbers we're doing behind it, just know that if you're listening to this, money doesn't magically appear in your bank account. There's some effort that has to go into this. It may sound easy now, but I've been at this for 18 years. So I may oversimplify some of this and I'll try not to do that. So that aside, we have to understand this whole opportunity with e-commerce is about moving physical products for us. There's, of course, digital product movement, which is some of the things you do, and we spoke about that earlier, to move digital assets into the marketplace to support a product or a service. I'm at the physical side of that, the branding, the actual product creation, the development of the brand narrative. And that's a different place that I discovered in my walk a while ago, which literally came to the primary question was asked of me on one of my first consulting calls. We had got a company in our first brand to over 7 figures. And there was a lot of people who were around us kind of watching that happen. And of course, they wanted to know how we did it. They wanted to know what products we sold. They're like, hey, can you help us? We're struggling or we're not doing it and we want to do it, And then spending a lot of time helping other people do that. And one of the first lessons I learned about coaching is making sure you simplify the process, but you don't overcomplicate it so much, but you have to obviously give them all the right information from the very beginning, even if they don't necessarily get it all or can consume it all. You need to give it to them so that in time they can hear it, they can listen, they can execute on it. And in that experience, they'll gain wisdom, but not without the experience. And this call was with a gentleman. We went through the process, was answering the questions and getting to the end of the line, showing him how the product could be developed, how you would get the product, what you should price it at. And he looks at me and he says, but man, what the hell do I actually sell? Like after all that, he just got down to like, what the hell? And so that became the mantra by which we began solving that problem in our business as we expanded brands and became new brand owners and new product developments. And the process by which we created a methodology we call the green light process, which is to basically look at all the factors of a product type and determine that if we go by the numbers and the fundamentals of the business, we can find out exactly what that net profit should be with an 80% confidence so that when I launch a product in the market, I have an 80% confidence it's going to be profitable. And we chose to start out on the Amazon channel because I understood systems of automation. My background was in building large systems of automated movement of information. And I knew that if I was going to be successful in doing this, and given my background in that and my background in business and marketing and lead generation, I had to get a system that would do that. And so when a friend brought me Amazon, I was like, no, I don't want to sell on Amazon. It's like eBay. It's like this kind of thing. I don't want to do that. I'm not drop shipping products and that kind of thing. But the end result was the system of Fulfilled by Amazon, which was in essence a logistics company they bought to do the planes, trains, and automobiles, the stuff that you and I take advantage of now every day, every week when we buy products that get shipped to our house. I said, oh, that's very interesting. And in that process of automation and figuring out what the hell to sell, one of the things we had to do was understand their costs. We have to understand the cost of doing business. Amazon has fees and platform fees and storage fees and other stuff to account for. And what I found very quickly was that a lot of people were selling sub $30 products on Amazon. And 10 years ago, you could make a profit doing that. 5 years ago, it got much more difficult. And today it's nearly impossible. So in that process of elevating the product, we continue to elevate the net profit requirement until it has to be above $12 in net profit. So if you're selling a $15 product, you're not going to hit $12 in net profit. If you're selling a $20 to $30 product, there's a good chance you're not going to hit that. So we started selling products $50 to $500 in retail. And as we did the numbers, it made a lot more sense, to start searching and developing those products as part of that question about what the heck do I sell it. We use conditional statements to look at that in what we call the circle of confidence. Everything in your life, everything you bought, everything you know, you're an avatar of a business that's looking to sell you a product. And in the consumer-driven world, there is the same product structure happening in the background where companies are trying to develop the products that they want to sell to you, and they want to do it obviously profitably. and they want you to buy more of it. Well, that's evolved. It's evolved so much that Amazon's average order value is around $69 now. So if I'm selling a $30 product, the average order is $69. I have a huge opportunity to level up my brand and get in front of the majority of traffic on that platform that's paying that average amount of money. When I do that, I level up my profitability, my ability to market. And if I'm learning the fundamentals, I'm asking the question, what are the numbers that need to happen in this business to pay myself, pay other people, pay for marketing, and make it go? And not just look at the greedy benefits, but who I'm serving, how I'm serving them, what products to serve them with, so that they buy more products from me. They get attracted to my brand and they tell other people to do that. And the only way I can do that is to make my business profitable. And in this today's world, we have a lot of people that don't understand the fundamentals of business, arguing over cost of tariff and other things, not realizing that that's a cost of goods like taxes or the product itself or the infrastructure or anything else, paying yourself, paying for marketing. And you have to factor that into the cost. So right now, a lot of people who are selling products $20, $30, $40 in price point are suffering. They're suffering because they can't handle that gap change in the tariff trade. Now it's coming down. It's been very volatile. In April, it's very high, and then it's low. And now we're seeing there's a bit of a moratorium on certain kinds of products, and certain products are falling out into certain tariffs. And everybody's sort of waiting to see where the consumer side of the tariff piece kind of falls out. But make no mistake, I've done this long enough. It's not the first time. It's not my first rodeo where products and marketing and logistics have changed dramatically. You might have remembered that little thing that happened there a while back in 2020 when product was really hard to get a hold of. We couldn't move it fast enough to meet the demand. Everybody was buying online. And oh, by the way, shipping and logistics costs went ridiculously high. And they went from, say, $3,500, $3,900, $4,500 per container in December 2019 to by the first quarter of 2020, they were up to $25,000, $15,000 to $25,000 per container. And all of a sudden, the cost structure of that was tremendously difficult to bear the burden of any product $50 or less. A lot of people fell out of the market, but why didn't anybody else sort of know that? Why are they forgetting that? Because they weren't paying attention, because they were focused to their families. They were focused to the world. They were focused on health and safety and these kinds of things. They weren't paying attention to the product movement. They just needed the product and they needed it to be there. And oh, by the way, they were really not busy in life so much anymore. So they were doing a lot of buying online to kind of make up for that concern, right? They had a lot of buying. And so as we get through those numbers, we realized if we elevate our product and brand, if we ever run into that situation again, where cost structures go through the roof for any reason, based on the shipping, availability of the product, consumer demand, taxes, indirect taxes through tariffs and other things that occur, we have to be able to meet that demand. So we spent the better part of the last 5 years elevating all of our product and brand types above $50, $100, $200, $300 in price point. And sales haven't slowed down. Profitability's increased, right? Quality of products are demanded, obviously, at a very different level. But it answers, again, that question, what the hell do I sell? Isn't just any kind of product I think I can move a volume vanity metric on. It's a product I can actually sustain profitability through highs and lows in business, right? When the economics change, we have to be elastic. We have to move with those elasticities of supply and demand. And not having a warehouse, not having people to do all that was really easy because Amazon's system handled all the movement of my product for me. So I could go up and down with them while their warehouses got a little choked and things were challenging. Right now, they're pretty wide open, but they're about to get choked again because all the people who bought products are on the water right now. And now that it's sort of opened up again, there is, I just saw yesterday, LA's port alone has 53 inbound ships. So this is going to be a major moment here in about 3 or 4 weeks when it's going to congest. It's going to go the other way. They're going to have so many ships stacking up and so many people trying to move the product. We're going to have a slightly different problem as this swings up and swings down. And eventually, as there's this 90-day moratorium right now at the time we're shooting this around July 8th or so, we're going to see how that all falls out as they continue to negotiate with about 70 different countries as to how this tariff thing is going to shake out. But make no mistake, if you think that's all a negative, you're not paying attention to the broader picture. The S&P might be down a little bit, but it was really up the other day. So what you're going to see from that tariff is actually last month, the largest surplus of capital tariff income just hit the shores. So we had a surplus of capital in our country last month for the first time in who knows how long, a long time. And not everybody sees that because they're not really paying attention to it from the economic side of a business. They're just sort of wondering how products and gas and other things are going to affect them. We're wondering about how the products and logistics are going to affect their ability to get the products, which is a different problem to solve. So as you see this thing go forward, it's now projected somewhere between 2030 and 2035 that this entire tariff plan is going to unlock somewhere around $2.5 trillion in external revenue from tariffs by that year annually, 2.5 trillion a year. Well, America has never seen that kind of abundance in our country before. So if you're thinking about this year and thinking about the fourth quarter of this year, or even into the first or second quarter of next year, this is your chance to sort of get on that wave and ride it for the next 2 to 3 years. Because if you do, there's a huge upside coming. It sort of feels like there's no opportunity right now, but that's when you actually move. When the money moves, you move. You pivot when the money pivots, right? And if it's not close to you right now and you don't feel resourceful, then get resourceful, because this is an opportunity to move fast. There are so many products. You know, people will say, Axel come in and be like, oh, this is so saturated, there's no new products. Well, that's actually wrong. They'll say there's too much competition. Oh, that's actually wrong. They'll say, well, you can't compete against the Chinese, and that's actually wrong too. They'll say there's no fair market share if you try to compete in the US business because you have to import your products, and that's actually wrong too. There's a lot of myths in this marketplace of physical products that are usually, and have been for the last few, 3 to 5 years, being extolled by those who are trying to sell you more marketing, drop shipping, shortcut type product models, retail arbitrage, wholesale, nothing that has to do with the fundamental of business and private labeling and brand building. They're selling you on all the short-term goodies. Get this now, get it now, get it now. And with that, people have not been building real businesses. They've just been building side hustles. And what I'm talking about is real business building. That's a 3 to 5 year mechanism you enter, right? 3 to 5 years doing something that no one else will do, so you can live like no one else can after that. Mm-hmm. With these kinds of businesses and the amount of internet traffic, the volume of traffic creation from social media, the volume of demand capture on a platform like Amazon and others, 4 to 5 years, I've got folks doing 5, 10, 15 million a year in sales. So you take that business brand up and you have a generational wealth opportunity creating. You have an asset that you're building with the end in mind. It's very important you understand that. And I don't think everybody fully grasps, because we're sort of zero stroking out on these numbers. How much is $1 billion? How much is $1 trillion? I would encourage anybody, because these get thrown around all the time like it's nothing, like it's pocket change. And I think we're all sort of like not paying attention to the truth behind that, how big those numbers actually are. And if I could just get a 0.001% of that, how much money you could actually make in a business for yourself. And I think people sort of forget that. Just the Amazon platform alone, as an example, it's doing around 6,500 to 7,500 units a minute, literally. And when it's in peak times, it can do 9,000 to 10,000 units a minute. So when you look at the scope of those product opportunities and people yell, there's no opportunity, there's cost. Well, if I go to a direct-to-consumer channel, website, marketing, media, Shopify, direct-to-consumer, even a TikTok channel is considered direct-to-consumer, I have to drum up that interest. I have to create the demand. I have to do the marketing that's good and aligned and understands what the narrative and really speaks to them. That's something you're extremely good at, but most people find it to be very difficult. Plus, you have to track everything. You have to be over the funnel. You have to go with the conversion rate. You have to be a tweaker and a geeker. You got to get in and play with all those little things. And that is awesome if you like to tweak and geek out, but it's not great if you're trying to just drive profit to a business. And the cost structure and time of that knowledge is very intensive. And I have some friends who are very good at that, and I see what they do. And to me, in some ways, I understand it. I get it. I've even implemented it, but it's a little bit of a black box with a little bit of creativity and a little bit of just, God-given talent to go in and see that. And not everybody can adapt that as a knowledge. What I want people to see is there's an opportunity that even if you don't know what to sell and you've never sold on a platform like Amazon before, the demand is there. It's a demand capture platform. That means the traffic and the people and the 200 million buyers are already there. And their sole intent is to buy something in 30 seconds or less. So I don't have to wonder, is it split test? Are they driving traffic? Is the funnel working? Are they taking payments? Is it converting really well? What I have to worry about is, do I have a great product, a great data set? Okay, we sell listings to an AI engine. Very important. I'll cover that. We are demand creators, but we do it in such a way that there's a platform of demand capture by which we can create a brand, a competitive brand that's not an invention, but an innovation against a demand that is already there. You got a crock pot at home by chance? You guys cook? Maybe you have one. Yeah, a lot of people have them, right? Maybe an air fryer. You got one of those? Let's hit around. A lot of people do. Okay, so if you look at this is just innovation, right? So the crock pot, a lot of people had, but what was the concern? Well, it might burn down and kill grandma, or the house will burn down if you plug it in and leave it. It's like a concern, right? Because somewhere, someplace on the news, once upon a time, one person's house burned down because they blamed it on a crock pot, right? And then everybody's like, well, crock pots aren't safe, be careful. So what did Instapot do? They developed a brand narrative that was basically, well, we're not your grandma's crockpot. And everybody's like, well, because we're safe and we have features and we shut off and we have an auto shut off and we set timers and we have these cool features. And while we're a crockpot, we're not your grandma's crockpot. Well, $1 billion in sales. It was just an innovation, right? So where are air fryers at? Well, air fryers are like, well, we're not Instapots. That's literally what they're doing in their brand. You can sum it up to literally, we do these fun little things with air fryers that can be done in like 10 minutes and get a home cooked meal. And then they get out there with all these influencers showing all of these air fryer recipes all of the time, everywhere. 10-minute hack this, put these 4 ingredients together, put it in the air fryer. 15 minutes later, you got a hot meal. And people are like all about that. And they're selling the crap out of air fryers right now. Okay. They're just innovation. If you innovate something, it's very different. In fact, my first product I discovered on as seen on TV commercial at 4 a.m. when I was feeding a bottle to my third daughter. She was up and mom was super sleepy, and we had 4 kids in 4.5 years. So we were running and gunning like crazy. And since I'm already a night owl and only need like 4 hours of sleep, I'm not a night. And so I could stay up late. She was always crashing early. So I take the late shift. She's up, I'm watching this infomercial, and I'm like in consumer mode still, so I'm not really paying attention. And up comes this product called Seat Pets, and they had this really cool thing, and it's strapped into the seat, and the kids put their head on. Here I am as a dad. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to buy one of these. Like, I got kids. These are really cool. We'll take them on the trips. I got these animals and stuffed. It's so cool. And then it just snapped. My brain just clicked. It was like, no, I'm a producer. I'm not a consumer. If I'm buying one of those, it's because I'm going to see if I can sell one. And so we got it the next day, got one of those products, sent it to my partner. I said, hey, man, what's the innovation? What's the thing? What's the tweak? And he comes back a day later and he says, hey, I got it. My son is into anime. And I bet if we just tweak the product a little bit, make an anime feature out of it, not just a straight animal, but we take the cat and the dog or whatever, and we give them the big eyes and we make the head a little bigger and we fix a couple of things. I bet we can sell those. I'm like, yeah, that's genius. So we went out and we sold them for about $5 more per unit. And we took 2,000 of them. Hail Mary pass. I remember it was one of the first brands we actually took off on. I had to put my half on a credit card because I wasn't really running and gunning yet. And we sold 2,000 of those in 8 weeks organically. They just flew off the shelves. And all of a sudden, it dawned on me. It was like, this is demand. This is an overflow of demand happening from the television, from marketing and advertising that someone else is already doing. You don't have to be smart enough about who they're approaching. I just have to understand who they're approaching and get in front of it. And that's when the whole thing sort of kicked off. And we launched 6 more of those. And then we just followed that process into like an as seen on TV strategy where we would test multiple variations of different products we could innovate, find out if they would sell, if whichever one, cream of the crop rise to the top, whichever one of those 5 versions that sold, we simply fill the inventory on that one. And then we would add on, hyper relevant marketing. Once we knew it sold and we wanted this one, well, then we just started marketing that one. And guess what happened? Right? The thing took off like crazy. So I think a lot of people overcomplicate it. They get bought into these myths. And here's the thing that is true about private label. And it's true about anything that's good, actually. It takes more time, energy, attention, and money to build something that's good to great. And that is one of the things a lot of people have trouble with, right? It takes time. Okay. What does that mean? It means in year 1, I'm building the brand structure. I'm building the narrative. I'm building the awareness. I'm building the market share. I might even be innovating the product a little bit and trying to dial it into that audience and just make sure they really understand what I'm giving them. So they'll buy more and more of it and then buy more and more of other things in my brand too. And that makes year 2 my growth year, right? Everybody wants year in 1 to be their growth year. They want it to be their home run. They're not patient. But year 2 is my growth to profit year. Okay, could I hit profits in year 1? Yes, but I will always reinvest those. I will reinvest those in year 1 to double down on that opportunity so that the growth is much larger, as long as the profitability is larger, and I can actually take more profit in year 2, right? So I have an opportunity to go into the market and be somebody who is now moving from growth to profitability while I'm taking over more market share, while my reviews are coming in, while I'm enhancing the product. And then I can actually start taking some profit out of the business in year, month 12 to 18, where I'm not slowing down that growth. I'm not slowing down my ability to acquire the customer. I'm not slowing down my ability to increase my inventory, to move into market share. And then if I'm setting myself up correctly in that way, and I've been smart in the fundamentals of my business, then by years 3 to 5, I can have scale in my business. And then I want people to become what I call the 8%. I want you to become part of the 8%. Why? 8% of businesses succeed in year 4 through 5. 92% of them fail. It's not that they fail to get started. It's not that they fail to get into year 2. It's that by year 3, They're slowing the business down out of their own risk to reward ratio or their need to capitalize their life off the business without letting it grow and mature. So they take too much out of the business too quickly. They slow its ability to grow. And then when they realize they've made that mistake, which is a common mistake, by year 4 and 5, they're either trying to scramble to get money or they're deciding whether they should keep it going or shut it down. So I want people to become part of the 8%. There's also a systematic thing. And I know I'm just rambling on, dude. So just interrupt.
No, I love this. I'm listening and I'm loving it. And I'm thinking of my follow-up question was going to be, how do you know to keep going? Because I think there's so much content out there about, making 10 grand a month in like 3 months that people just are not patient enough and they don't want to be the sucker that is doing something for way too long. And it's just like a gimmick or it's going
Absolutely. Yeah. But here's the thing. If brands and products were a gimmick, there wouldn't be so many of them and we wouldn't be so widely recognized or tied into them that I could ask you, for example, have you ever heard of Lucky Strikes?
Yeah.
Are you a smoker? Right. So there's a brand you know about that you've never been a party to. It's not your target audience, but you know the brand. You probably couldn't tell me what variations of cigarettes they have because that's not really important. It's the brand that matters.
Yeah. And I remember the white pack with the red circle in the middle.
Dude, you're not even a smoker though. See, the power of branding is what we're talking about here, not the product. The product only meets the need of the customer who then becomes attached to the brand. So it's important that we do that. And that's where it takes time for people to realize that while you may only be spending 3 to 5 years in this process, not 3 to 5 months, that time is really well spent when a product or brand you are creating can literally go on for decades and decades after you, okay, and become an iconic brand that everybody knows about, even if they don't use it. That's your opportunity. It's also an opportunity to understand the systems that are helping to promote and grow that. With this online system now, this distribution engine, these social medias, the dialed in marketing of that, of Amazon, all right, or even meta ads or TikTok or whatever, with these dialed in algorithmic measures, they know how to get to that audience. Okay? I don't have to be smart enough to tell the market what it wants. I have to be smart enough to follow the market and then get that in front of the market that already exists across all of these channels, right? So I've got to know that if I have an understanding of that concept, then it is just a matter of the time, energy, and attention necessary to get it into the market, right? And then I have to deploy the right amount of capital, okay? In my world, we have to deploy 50 to 200,000 in year 1 to grow a serious, long-term, sustainable brand with multiple products that will go beyond 3 and 5 years into a scalable event within that business. You can't do it on a few $1,000s, and you can't do it in a few months. The systems of maturity, can move very fast. Like Amazon, for example, it is not propagating all but 5% of all new SKUs in the first year. That jumps to 20% in year 2 and 40% in year 3. So as you are gaining market share, your chance to reach that 40% in your market share won't happen until year 3. It is like a snowball. It's a juggernaut. It rolls downhill. And as that economic engine turns and grows and reviews are coming in and people are wanting your product and that economic cycle is growing, it grows faster and faster and faster. Can you do certain things that go really quick? Absolutely. We've had one of our brands jump from 30 to 50,000 a month in 1 month. And then month 2, when we capitalize the inventory level enough to make the market demand say, well, we are going to capture this market share. And Amazon knows we have the metrics and data to do it. So it then gives us the additional traffic to prove that we can convert it. I've seen it go to 100,000 and 300,000 in 90 days, a month. Okay. If I'm in line with that metric, if I understand my customer, if I'm giving Amazon what it wants, it can turn into an absolute juggernaut. And I think people kind of miss that with short-term needs. And so what I'm really talking to is that business person out there who may never have been a, e-commerce business person, but they understand business. And they understand generational wealth opportunities. They understand deploying capital to those opportunities. They may be considering buying a franchise. They may want to buy a business. They may be big into real estate. They may be in a professional practice of dentistry or otherwise in medical, or they could be a high earning engineer or someone like that who's like, you know what, I've been at this for 15 to 20 years and I finally realized this is not the legacy I want to hand my kids. I want to hand time to them, my focus. I want to have something that they can do later on, something we might even do together. I want to hand them something of myself, of something we can give that has a benefit, a profitable benefit to them. They're a little bit more driven by the purpose and the family, not just self-interest. Well, typically they're a little older in nature. Those of us who are out running and gunning in our 20s and 30s are typically very centrically focused to ourselves. That's just a normal product of growing through those age groups. I was the guy who was like, well, I'm 20 something. And by the time I hit 40, I'm going to be a millionaire. I was like, I'm going to go out. I'm going to do that. I'm building a $1 billion company. Go, go, go. Rise, rise, rise. Grind, grind, grind. Right. All this crap. And it failed me. It failed me miserably. Like I didn't see the purpose and the value in what I was doing. And eventually I made compromises. I got too leveraged and I crashed a business and went bankrupt. At that point, I really understood boundaries. I understood my boundaries, what I was capable of, what other people were capable of doing, where to put certain people in, an A, B, C class. In other words, are you a C player? Are you a B player? Are you an A player? And really start to identify who could be affected by that and who I could affect, most importantly. And then not be spending time on those that I could not spend time on, that wouldn't see the outcome or have the time, energy, intention, money to actually do it. And so we really switched that up. And in my life, I've come to realize that that is one of the better learning lessons, but it had to come off a really big shakedown. And I can tell you, if you're afraid to, push so hard that you might go bankrupt, maybe you're not pushing hard enough. Do you have to go bankrupt? That's not the point, but you know where your boundaries are. You know where your financial boundaries are. If I'm doing business with a partner, I need to know that they failed somewhere along the way, that they weren't just, well, it's all successful, it's all great, it's all fine. And I don't hear any struggle. I don't hear any strife. I don't hear any challenges. I don't want that on my dime and their time. I don't want to be involved in that. They're going to go find out on their own. And I don't want to be a victim of those circumstances on the other side, because they're going to come and be like, well, it's your failure. I'm like, but you didn't do the work. And then it's a he said, she said, kind of thing. I don't want to get involved in that. So I'm always looking for people who really understand the business and the fundamentals, even if they don't understand e-commerce, because e-commerce can be taught in a process. I've taught it to 19-year-old high school dropouts, 16-year-old girls and 20-something, stay-at-home moms and 76-year-old grandmas. It's not an aptitude per se as much as it is an attitude that can train in the aptitude of a business builder and do it in such a way where they create an asset. When we build these from the very beginning, dude, they are worth a lot more in the end than at any time during the business building phase when we do it right. You can make great money in the process, but you are building an asset. You got to think about this like a virtual house. You are literally virtually building something that is appreciating every day, week, month, and year that you have control over it. And at some point, it's a saleable asset. And as a business builder, but also a business acquirer with my private equity group, we're always looking for great companies to buy. And we want to see that they have an omni-channel structure. They've got great products, great leadership, great automations in their systems, that they've been very smart and lean with their profit, and they are really serving a customer base. And then we look to acquire them. That's a very difficult process to do outside of a controlled framework, because we got to kiss hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of businesses to find the right ones that are actually doing what they say they do, and to get their numbers to actually pan out correctly, and to see that we can positively infect their growth for the next 5-10 years before we exit them again. So there's a lot of variables that have to be gone through to make sure that that's right. It takes quite a bit of time. So in that same process, I said, well, what if I just help them raise it up? What if I help train the operator and the CEO to build from the ground up, show them all the framework, and then when that business becomes a maturity, I offer them what's called a first right of refusal. And it was actually a really simple plan that's actually been executed now multiple times. We give an offer to them, and they come to us with first right of refusal for an off market, and we take a look at their business and determine if it is a saleable asset we might want. And I have a couple brands I'm looking at right now that we're going to potentially acquire in the next year, because they're reaching that point. We've already had those conversations, and they're within my tribe. And they're moving a little bit faster than the ones outside the network, because we know who they are. We help them raise the brand from the beginning. We know what kind of operators they are. We know they're running on our playbook. So they make really great potential acquisition strategies. So from the concepts of what the hell do I sell all the way through to the end, if you get that right from the beginning, if you understand the data, if you know what the systems are already creating demand on, and you simply get a product in front of it that's just a little bit innovative, it's just a little bit different, you just make it a little bit better, and you unleash a brand, really cool things can happen.
That sounds amazing. And I'm really interested in diving deeper into the brand building process, because I think, like you said, with the example of Lucky Strikes, that's a brand that represents something, but they could sell products, can always find their way into the brand.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the audience, like, my audience is usually young men in their 20s. They're trying to figure out what to do, how to make money. And I think thinking about a brand, it might be something that comes later in life. Right now, the kids are just looking, how can they make 10 grand a month and like blow up some money and then buy a Lambo? But that's only a little bit of money. I think in building a brand, that's, like you said, that's where you can see generational wealth that could change your future. But how do you teach that? How do you learn that? What are the basic building blocks of creating a brand?
Brand creates, in simple terms, in my world, it creates automation. So if I want to make money faster, easier, and larger, I let the brand take on its own life. I let it take on its own ecosystem. And then 24/7, 365, that brand makes sales. I don't have to always push the button, push the traffic. I don't have to be in the warehouse. There's a lot of automation around brands. And it isn't even just about the product. If I move my first product in the market, I'm looking for how do I attach myself to a brand narrative with first product, and then second, third, fourth, fifth product and on, I'm going to round out that brand. And we kind of borrow this from retail. If you know anything about retail at all, you know, like Apple, for example, that they sell you the iWatch, they sell you the iPad, they sell you the iMac, they sell you the iPro, and then you get 20 of those, and then your spouse has 5, and then your kids have 1, and pretty soon your house has like 30 different Apple devices in it, right? If you're a Honda family, then pretty much everybody you know in your family gets a Honda. If you're a Toyota, and so on. So as we attach ourselves to brands, we attach ourselves to the outcome of the belief that that brand is producing the best product for us, even if it comes up with multiple product types to try to serve that narrative of what that brand is creating, and realizing that most products have a life cycle. They will be established for a while and for a time, and then that time will, kind of come down. That won't always disappear, but it'll come down from its peak because other innovations and products will go up, and then you need new additional innovations. Those are product types, right? Like Chevy Nova came on for a while and then it died, right? When they realized that Nova was not the greatest word in Mexico, they couldn't sell the product and realized there was a big problem with Nova. But you look at the Toyota Corolla, and since like 1969 or something ridiculous, it's been the top selling car in all the world. So that one had a really long life cycle, okay? Most brands can serve a life cycle much greater than the products within them. So innovation of product is a never-ending ongoing opportunity within your brand to keep moving forward, innovating, creating products against the trends within your brand, because some of them may last a long time. Some of them may do really well for a short period of time, and then they'll kind of peter out and you have to reinvent them or go sideways 2 millimeters into the next product type and reinvent that product type in the market by just innovating against the market changes. That, you understand, means I'm now creating a brand with assets one time. I'm not just creating a product by product by product based brand segment. And this is dead. As of the whole thing with de minimis coming to an end, the dropshipping component of our business world in the United States is dead. So at this point, you have to onshore products in greater volume, and you have to build a brand around them. If you are not pivoting and have not pivoted in the last 24 months, you're already a victim of one of the major changes, one of the major Achilles heels to that model that was always there. It just hadn't changed. Okay, dropshipping at $800 or less and avoiding the tariffs on that was a temporary short-term side hustle hobby business thing. And if no one pivoted that into a brand, they're out, right? They're out now because they can't get those products. So you've got to onshore those products. You always really did, but I understand short-term needs. When I came out of the bankruptcy, I needed short-term money, man. I had a family, I had kids, I needed a hustle. I needed something to make money. I started flipping products online just to get money going. I totally get that. And everybody's at different stages of life. You just have to understand that there's an evolution you should evolve into, right? Once you get through that process, if you're in your 20s and thinking about your 30s and stuff, if you have an opportunity to build a brand around what you're doing right now, take the risk now. The reward will come faster for that sacrifice. And that's the opportunity I want most of you to understand today. Building those brands creates amazing long-term value of cash flow and profitability, where you can sustain economic conditions and changes. And unless you literally cannot get the product at all from anywhere, this is a business model that will go throughout all of time. In fact, it's like the second longest business model ever running, producing products. The first one I'm not in. That's prostitution and OnlyFans. No thanks. That's the first oldest profession in the world. The second one is moving products to people in any kind of form. We just happen to have the internet now to do it on. And this has changed dramatically in my lifetime as I've watched the internet come to fruition and seeing so much opportunity. And even on the cusp of AI now, we use it to force multiply our ability to time compress, move products into testing faster, move images and videos faster, compress our ability to move a product to market and validate it even quicker. Even with the AI and PPC, pay-per-click marketing side of Amazon, there are systems of automation and AI that are now competing machine to machine. So you simply can't compete human to human anymore. And you really have to understand that these large language models that have been in the works for a long time. In fact, we were working on them in my IBM days, pre-2007, where we were working on large language models that were around the human machine language learning and stuff, and training those models. That was 20 years ago. So they've come a long way, and really we're just at the cusp of what AI is going to start to do to industries and systems. And one thing is for sure, AI will not take over my ability to find a market and deliver a market through a physical product. That is going to require a human. But the humans that get involved can now multiply, say, one operator into 5 different roles. So I can have one operator running 3 to 4 7-figure companies with AI systems and tools that force replicate that person into each of those roles and using AI to do it. That is how this is going to be done in the future. And if you could see your way through that, and you realize how fast this is going to churn and how much revenue and opportunity and profit will be in those who actually take that risk.
From the operator point of view, and like as a CEO, how much of your marketing budget and your marketing time and effort would you divide on building initiatives versus like sales and like traffic and making money and like revenue and generating activities? Because I think that is very difficult. In my experience, I come from marketing and content and just brand, and I love that. But I also understand that you need to make sales and you need to send the campaigns and like put up the ads and do all of that. And it's super important. I see it as a combination, like you need both, but there's a nice balance. So I'm curious to hear from your perspective. To allocate time and money for those 2 initiatives.
So with an operator who understands the brand, has the products, and we start the organic marketing first to determine how we are placed within the engine, say on Amazon, then for that first channel, which is not a business, by the way, it's just channel number 1 in a holistic e-commerce company. I want people to hear me. If somebody says, well, I have an Amazon business, I say, well, you have an Amazon sales channel. Is there opportunities for you to go into additional sales channels and become a real business? A real business of multi-channel, just to clarify people's expectations today. Because a lot of people say Amazon business, all this stuff. And really what they mean is just another version of a side hustle. They're not actually starting a channel by channel platform opportunity to build a brand. And I want to clarify that's something we do different here. With that, PPC marketing on Amazon is one of the things you have to automate now based on your ability to acquire customers and to extol your brand. So there are sponsored ads, there are sponsored brand ads, and in there, there's even a coming beta to do video marketing onto the television through, Prime, Twitch, Freebie, etc., where you can run your 30-second ads from Amazon straight out to the television, which is coming very quick. So if we can touch Amazon, we can also touch Amazon. That way, Amazon is becoming the largest media buyer of online traffic. So with that, they're becoming an economic engine for all online advertising. Their revenues next year and profit are going to surpass their AWS systems with their front-end advertising engine. So what does that tell you? It means if you're smart about your products and you're going to do a product-based business, Amazon is helping you literally move into the great white web, if you will, of all the other locations, websites, or television where you can take your product and have it go to those locations, and then people can buy it back on Amazon. Okay, buy by Amazon for websites is now available. So that economic engine is kind of creating what I call, hub and spoke kind of thing when you're holistic. Amazon's infrastructure and warehouses, if I dial it in correctly and I get that logistics and supply chain, and I know that I could spend, say, 15% of my total advertising cost on that Amazon customer channel and acquire a customer profitably at 15% or less, I am dialed into that market share. So now it's just a matter of time to budget greater and keep my CRO, my conversion optimization in line so that I can continue to go from growth to scale while maintaining a 15% or less total advertising cost of sale per unit. With that, then I can see as the next wider channels are opening up, I have a bigger opportunity to go into a greater market share. But I don't necessarily have to open a Shopify and a Meta account. I have to get really smart with how Amazon is utilizing its systems to propagate across all the platforms and things that it's buying or moving into, like the other platforms for television and stuff. Now, if I want to go off and create a Shopify store and go out and do a TikTok shop or something and get my UGC content out there in the world, I'm going to know my audience. I'm going to know my graphics. I'm going to know my content. I'm going to know a good portion of my numbers, and I'm going to know what I need to dedicate to the paid media acquisition of that. So what we'll usually see is per unit cost will be anywhere between 30 to 45% on Amazon based for every unit you sell. That's the platform fees, referral fees, and cost fees, and sourcing fees, and fees around storage and other fees you got to put together as part of your cost of goods. Well, if I go out to buy media ads or Google ads, I'm going to be around the same 30 to 45% with the CPMs where they are right now. I know everybody yells, well, Amazon costs so much. Well, have you bought media lately? on any of those platforms, because if you haven't, then you're really uneducated. If you're over there buying on Meta and these kinds of ads, selling a $50 or less product now on a customer acquisition for those channels is extremely difficult. If you're in the $50 to $150 price point on your front end customer acquisition, you can make it work. And that's because the CPMs have gone up. The networks are finding it more difficult to get people to advertise. The number of advertisers have gone down, so the CPMs have gone up. So if I'm going to go acquire a customer on those channels, I'm usually going to say I need to dedicate 30 to 40% cost of goods against that marketing to get that thing off the ground. And then it's my job to acquire that customer, because I can't acquire a customer, I don't have a business. And the second thing is, if I don't acquire them for a full profit or nearly any profit on the front end, I need a high AOV, very important, average order value, and then I need to get right behind them. And in the first 30 days, I need to sell them something else. Okay, I need to sell them additional products, another variation of that product. I need to SMS, follow up on their email, give them a discount, get them to buy something else 2 or 3 times in that next 45 days. And then I can see even up to 60 days, I now have a window of customer attribution I can work under. And right now it's 30 to 60 days realistically. So it's no longer just every day I can consume somebody and make it profitable. That was the yesteryears. Now, if I can get them to touch my account and acquire something in the first 30 to 60 days, I've won, because I got that customer away from them. It's my responsibility to take that revenue and turn it into profit. And again, that's acting like a business owner, all right? If I got to acquire somebody at $100 on a $50 product, I need them to buy another product with at least $50 in profit, or 2 more products with 25, or so on and so on, in order to get that break even moment, so that I can then sell them more product until they become more profitable and stay with me over a longer value of time. But make no mistake.
Also building, by acquiring the customer, you're also adding another brick on your brand building process.
I'm adding at least a percentage or 2 or more to my bottom line on the business valuation. It's very important. If your business, say, is 80% Amazon channel and 20% other channels, and the 20% of other channels might do great, they may make, in a $10 million business, they may have 2 to 3 million of that on those additional channels combined. A business buyer is going to look at that and say, well, you're missing this opportunity. You're not acquiring them there. This channel is open but not being maximized. I'm going to see 3, 4 things I can do in the next 2, 3, 4 years to open up each of those additional channels and double the business, right? Because you weren't focused on it, or didn't have the aptitude, or maybe you didn't have the time, or maybe you just couldn't split your knowledge of having that and doing the other one. And so there's that opportunity in reverse. If you're 80%, DTC website, but you have 20% Amazon, less than 20% TikTok, and you have other platforms that you have not fully maximized, that's your opportunity as well. Get in there, get that customer one to you, and the game really changes when you do that as a business owner. No matter what, your goal is to get that into, obviously, profit, but don't look down on the fact that you made revenue when you acquired them. Figure out a way to make it profitable.
So what are 2 or 3 basic things that you would inform to business owners who are doing at least $1 million in revenue a year, and they're trying to scale to 5 and then get on track to do 10 million in revenue? So
solopreneurs, entrepreneurs-ish with the aspiring aspect, who can get up to $1 million a year in revenue, that is typically finding your niche, finding your market share, dialing in your products, and discovering where the hero aspects of your product and brand are being identified yet. You're still in the brand building phase. Those who get from $1 million to 5 million understand that it is a systemized process now in place to force multiply and replicate anything that they were doing in that first 1 million. That could be, now my calendar is fully managed by a VA and I no longer touch my calendar. That could be, I'm bringing in a B player operations manager to start training them on my processes, etc., so I can start turning them in the next 12 and 18 months into an A player in my operational controls. It is replicating the processes that I had successful beyond myself. And since I know them well, because I got to 1 million on my own, I should really know what that person should be doing. At this point, 1 million to 5 million is objectives and key results. If you're not familiar with OKRs, you need to apply them in that business for systems, processes, and AI. So you have a key objective for, say, customer support, a key objective for product research, a key objective for sourcing, a key objective for graphics and images and marketing. And you're going to know what the 3 key results are that need to drive that metric to revenue, which means everything from 1 to 5 million is a revenue generating activity. And every role that's filled by one of those people that goes into those OKRs is a revenue generating role. Otherwise, don't fill it, right? And the best one for you to protect is your time. So the first one you should get is a VA who manages your calendar, manages your schedule, manages your time. Why? Because you are the producer. And if you are getting to 1 million, then you understand the core concept that sales fixes everything, right? That the product and brand can drive the sales forward. And it's just a matter of time until you figure out the next set of products or whatever that really cause your brand market share to go through the roof, and you're in a process. When you get to that 1 to 5 million is because you've got systems and processes in place, right? And those could be people, those could be technologies and automations you put in place, but one way or another, you've actually sort of reduced your time on one side of the house because you have automations and systems, but you've increased your time on another side of the house, which is ensuring you spend the time in those objectives and key results with those key players and get them trained up and spend your time working on them. That's your opportunity, right? Now you shift that time focus to them. From 5 to 10 million, when those people are in place and you've made it to 5 million and everybody knows their roles and you're running lean and mean, it's you and maybe 3 or 4 specific people contracted in for those specific OKRs, not even W-2 employees. That's not really needed in this business model. But you've got them in as contractors, their objectives and results. They know every quarter how they're going to get bonused if they meet those performances. They know every week you meet for 15 minutes and you're like, here's the things we're doing. Sometimes you don't meet every week because they're doing their job really well, but it only takes 15 minutes to ask how you're doing, what do you need, what's on your agenda for next week, and how can I help you? And the next step is to then replicate that out. And then the real risk between 5 and 10 is you. It's always the operator. It is the risk to reward ratio of increasing the capitalization of the business from 5 to 10 million is always about doubling down on capitalization. If you're doubling down on your product line, if you're doubling down on your marketing, if you're doubling down on the risk or taking lines of credit or other things necessary or lowering profitability to expand the business, that is your opportunity. And it literally comes down to usually the owners who don't either see their way through it or they felt comfortable at the 5 million. It feels too risky to get to 10 and they're not really sure what's going to happen. It is almost always up to the operator or the CEO of that business to move it from 5 to 10 million because the risk to reward ratio is that largest gap. It's similar to the 3 to 5 year gap. Okay. To get to that 5 to 10 million is very similar in nature. And when it occurs, then it's really easy for you to go to 10 to 20 million. It's just a matter of time because you've already gone through your biggest risk to reward ratio. You've now dialed in the next level of growth. And that's a maturity of your brand across multiple systems, multiple platforms, multiple sales funnels, maybe even retail and other channels. And now it's just a matter of time to go in and continue to do what you're doing great, but you've got to always spend more money to do it.
Now, is there a mistake in trying to optimize and build all the automation and bring people in too early? Should people wait? Are there some like milestones that people could look into before growing too quickly and bringing people on board too soon?
Well, yes, I have operators that can do easily 2, 3, 500,000 a month before they bring any operation staff in. Why? Because if they're starting on that platform of Amazon, really it's a matter of understanding the economic engine, their brand creation, and the system management of that platform. And you don't need multiple people to do that. If you're doing it well and you've been trained well, you're using some of the systems of automation from PPC management operation to tracking your product movement and logistics with AI tools that we use that help us track profitability and just-in-time product management. You have people that you've attached to that have images and graphics and A+ content and video making, and so they're able to do those things. You don't have to do them anymore, so you can have one person really tracking that down. So yeah, people hire too soon to try to automate their position or to try to spend less time. But I will tell you that you can get to 1 million to 5 million with just people and systems and a specific couple of contractors tied to that, where the systems of automation and AI now today handles so much of it for you. We're literally on the path to our first $1 billion single man company.
So Neil, you have covered a lot of ground. And I also know that you're doing a lot of work interviewing operators. I was looking at your channel and you have a lot of stories of people that are actually taking these things, putting them into action with their channels, with their marketing, with everything. Tell me a little bit about what you do personally. What are you passionate about? And like some of the background stories that you have been able to now live through by doing the work that you did.
Well, first and foremost, my story. I mean, I came through this process. We trained ourselves how to do this. We now run 9 brands. We got 3 more that we're starting up right now. I have 3 operators running those brands. So I'm no longer at the tactical aspect of those brands. I have operators who were trained up, who came and trained with us for a year or 2 years, actually, in most cases, to learn how to do this, to build their brand, to build into our mechanisms of software and people and process and methodology. And now that they've got theirs up and running, we've partnered with them to run some of ours. And so with that, I've trained people to go become a CEO operator and give them the opportunity how to do it by giving them all the systems and softwares and things I've used with my team to do it successfully, and how we manage and do it, every day, week, and month. And then I let them come in and learn how to do it with us. It's not a course. It's not a program. I don't believe in any of that nonsense. I have the coursework and training inside of what we do in order to give them the playbook, but I have a one-to-one aspect and a control over those success of those operators, because I have an end game in mind. And that is when 4 to 5 years comes up, I want to acquire their company. So I pour everything into those operators to make sure that they have that upside potential. For example, David LeBlanc, he was an existing operator that started. He was doing about $30,000 a month, but it was costing him about $30,000 a month to run the business. So when he came to me, he's like, either you help me fix this business in the next 6 months, or I'm just have to shut the whole thing down. I can't keep going. Well, we turned him around, right? Within 5 months, he did the work. We directed it, is done with him. He actually followed the process, hired the people we have in our group, did what was necessary, learned to how to take advantage of this AI system that he had not been taught before, that was sitting right in front of him. And he turned $100,000 a month, and he turned it into 20% net profit. He's over 25% net profit now, and he has $615,000 a month as of last month when I updated with him. And that was in about 24 months. So what happened is he literally understood how to unleash that AI engine, the propagation and distribution of it, and take the existing product base he had and turn it into a winner. But he would have ditched the whole thing if he hadn't learned that, because a lot of people are not being taught how to build a business and then give these systems, these AI systems online, Amazon, Marketplace, everywhere else, okay? Give it the information that it wants and do it at the right amount of times. I call it priming the engine. And he simply didn't understand how to prime the engine. But as soon as we showed him how to do that, everything flipped around extremely fast. We have a couple of other case studies, and you guys are willing to go check these out on my website. But Daniel, for example, he started during the COVID timeframe in 2020. It took him 9 months longer to launch due to all the lag to get the products to market. But he had the chops to keep up with that, and he was willing to see it through to the end. He even sat around the table with his kids and his wife and got them involved in the product sourcing, and they did it as a family. And so you fast forward, he built off the processes we taught him and uses a system and technology. He's shot past 15 million in 5 years. And he's doing an amazing job. It's a huge upside potential. I have folks like a lady we just celebrated last week who just broke for her first 150,000 in revenue with 20% profit. She's now moving to scale that growth towards the end of 2025. This fourth quarter, I think she'll break more than $500,000 in sales at her current run rate of projection. And that's going to slingshot her into her next million next year, because it's going to be an exponential growth as she moves forward. And she's done a great job. She's a real estate agent. She's never been taught this thing in her life. And she came in and she's crushing it. And we're really excited to see where she goes. And it's just all different variances, but there's a process by which that occurs. And David, for example, is talking to us about acquiring his company. Daniel and I have gone back and forth over time about when he might be ready to exit his business. And we've talked about the possibilities of that. I bought a couple of other companies from our client group that are doing well, and then we're growing and scaling those. And that's one of the reasons why I get them involved, is because once the operators are in and trained, we have a win-win connecting to the future business, the partnerships, the acquisitions, and things we do. So it's a small group thing. I don't do it by a lot. We do them in groups of like 10 when we have a chance to do it. With people, I interview every person to make sure they're a good fit. They have to qualify. They go through a DISC assessment profile to make sure they have even the right structure and framework and aptitude to fit into my operator profiles, which means I obviously cannot do this with everybody. And I think we've had around 200-300 people roughly plus or minus since 2019. So I keep it pretty small and pretty focused, and really only looking for the right people who understand this upside potential and can dedicate the time, energy, attention, and money to really see it become successful.
That's impressive. I really like about you that you're actually getting deep in the actual knowledge and the business operation side of things. I think we need a lot more of that, and people just need to slow down a little bit, especially for young guys. I think that's my audience, and we're just very impatient. We just want to learn, and we want to know that it can be done quickly.
I love that. And I love imperfect action. It's just, it has to be focused on a task or an outcome that has a greater than short-term gain. Then take that short-term drive, that imperfect action, that just get it done attitude, and build it into something that in 5 years, by the time you're 5 years more mature in your walk, you're going to see a lot of the things I'm saying are not only true, but you're now riding the right wave in that opportunity because you didn't just think short-term. And yeah, it's a tough thing to get past because we're 6-second attention spans now. And for those of you who are still listening past the first 6 seconds of this conversation, I appreciate you staying on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you, Neil, sharing all your knowledge, and I hope that we can stay in touch and keep helping people. If you like this episode, send it to a friend, share it with someone, and make sure to like and subscribe. And also go check out Neil's channel. He has a lot of interviews there and a lot of good content. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the episode, and we'll see you on the next one.